In the mountains of northern Romania, there is a road that appears on maps for only 1 week every 10 years. At the end of that road is a village, or at least something that looks like one. Houses, smoke from chimneys, lights in windows, people walking the streets. And then exactly 7 days later, the road disappears. The village disappears. Every building, every person, every trace. Gone. The strangest part? Anyone who visits during that week is never quite the same again. And some of them never leave. The first time this village was officially documented was in 1973. A hiking group from Germany got lost during a storm in the Carpathian Mountains. Their leader, Klaus Richter, later described what happened in a journal recovered by authorities. According to Klaus, the group had been wandering for hours when they noticed something impossible. A road. A paved road, right in the middle of untouched wilderness. It wasn't on any map, but tire tracks ran down it. And far in the distance, they could see lights. A village. Klaus wrote that the village looked old. Very old. Wooden houses, stone wells, lanterns hanging from posts. But something about it felt wrong. The villagers stared. Not rudely, not aggressively, just quietly, watching. One of the hikers asked an elderly man where they were. The man smiled and said, "You arrived early this cycle." They assumed it was a language barrier, but the longer they stayed, the stranger things became. First strange signs. The hikers noticed something disturbing. No one in the village seemed surprised to see them, almost like visitors arrived often. Yet there were no cars, no phones, no electricity lines. And the villagers asked strange questions. Questions like, what year is it where you came from? What country rules here now? Is the war still happening? But they never clarified which war. On the second day, one of the hikers noticed something terrifying. The clocks in the village were wrong. Not just the time, the dates. Every clock showed the same date, October 17th, 1943. But this was 1973. When Klaus asked the innkeeper why the clocks were wrong, the man said something that chilled him. Because that is the day the world stopped here. The first disappearance. On the third night, one of the hikers vanished. A young woman named Annika. Her door was locked from the inside, her window closed, but she was gone. The villagers didn't seem concerned. In fact, the innkeeper simply said, "Sometimes the village keeps someone." Panicked, the hikers decided to leave immediately. But when they reached the road, it was gone. The paved road had turned into a narrow dirt path leading into thick forest. They wandered for hours. Then suddenly, they were standing back at the village entrance again, as if the forest itself was looping. The old woman. That night, Klaus met an old woman sitting near the well. She whispered something strange. "You must leave before the 7th sunrise." Klaus asked why. The woman pointed toward the mountains and said, "Because when the road closes, the village remembers." He asked what that meant, but she refused to explain. On the sixth day, something impossible happened. A military jeep drove into the village. Inside were 3 soldiers, but their uniforms weren't Romanian, or German, or Soviet. They were wearing modern NATO uniforms. The soldiers were from 2003, 30 years into the future. They had followed the same mysterious road, the same road that shouldn't exist. Now, there were 2 groups trapped in the village. 1973 hikers, 2003 soldiers, and the villagers watched both groups with quiet curiosity, almost like scientists observing an experiment. Then, the soldiers discovered something horrifying: the cemetery. The graves weren't dated in the past, they were dated in the future. Some graves had dates like 1991, 2014, 2037. And one grave had Klaus's name. The morning of the 7th day arrived. The villagers began packing their homes, not rushing, just calmly preparing, like people leaving for vacation. Klaus asked where they were going. The innkeeper answered, "We're not leaving. You are." And then something terrifying happened. The road appeared again, but it wasn't leading out. It was leading through the village, into darkness. Some villagers walked down the road and vanished. Others stayed behind. Klaus realized something horrifying. The village wasn't disappearing. It was moving through time. Every 10 years it reappeared, collecting people, dropping others somewhere else. A place between years, between histories. Klaus and 2 soldiers ran down the road before it vanished. They eventually stumbled out of the mountains, but when authorities investigated the location, there was nothing there. No road, no houses, no village, just forest. But Klaus noticed something years later. Every 10 years, on October 17th, a road appears on satellite images, just for a few days. And if you zoom in close enough, you can see something at the end of it. A small village, waiting, watching the road.